Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd. I'm Heather Bernt-Santy, and we're going to talk about something called kinesthetic musicality today. It's going to be great. I've got two guests here today. Mike Huber is one of them. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
You want to tell folks about yourself in case it's their first time hearing about you?
Sure. Well, if it is your first time, no, so I've obviously been on this podcast a lot for people who do listen
Yeah.
more regularly, but I'm the author of Embracing Rough and Tumble Play, which I think will come up in this um thing. And then my I have a book, Inclusion Includes Us, and then my most recent book is The Power in Pretend, in which I actually um quote Ebba in the book. So
Mm.
which I should have had that handy but it's been a crazy day. So that's about me. Oh, and I have my podcast, Teaching with the Body in Mind.
You're so bad at remembering all the
I know.
things you need to plug about yourself. I
Sorry.
say
I
with
need
love.
I need notes like you have.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mike. I shouldn't have made fun of you. Um, also joining us today is Ebba Theorell from Sweden, right?
Yes.
And she is the author of an article called Kinesthetic Musicality and War Play in Early Childhood that is just mind-blowing. So I'm so excited you're here. Would you tell folks about yourself and then we'll jump into the article.
Yes, so actually, the article is like a short version of my PhD thesis. So it's like I'm from Sweden. I'm from Stockholm in Sweden, and I work at the University of Stockholm as a lecturer. And right now, I'm doing my postdoc project that is like a follow-up on my thesis that was like a larger study on war play, young boys war play. Uh, yes, and yes, and the article that you read, I think, yeah, I think I can say that that is like a short version because I of my thesis because almost everything I wrote until now is in Swedish, and I have
Yeah.
been talking a lot. I have many like conferences in Swedish, not so many in English, like internationally. So this is like the first time I actually write about it like more in detail in English. So I'm very glad that you picked it up. So it's like really the first time I'm talking about it like this.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
um,
It's oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, it's
Yeah. I mean, it's just such an interesting um kind of way of viewing something that we've been talking about for so long in our work with young children, that I'm really excited that you're here and that you wrote this. So thank you for sharing it with us. But to get us started, you wrote in the introduction, living in times of war and male violence, we as educators need to create visions of new masculinities. Hooks argues that we can find inspiration in feminist theory to develop these new ideas, and in relation to this, I propose that we combine feminist theory with learning from children how stereotyped expressions and events can be transformed into new expressions and meanings. War play is played from generation to generation, but in each transmission, each repetition, the content and expression is transformed. What kind of new meaning do boys invent in their physical war play in their early childhood? How can war be perceived, understood, reinterpreted, and reconceptualized? So before we jump into the main idea of the kinesthetic musicality, would you just talk about that opening a little bit and maybe expand on that a little, and then we'll
yes.
move forward?
Hmm. Yeah, so maybe I didn't say so much about my background, but it's very connected to that, of course, because I am an artist to begin with. But I've been working in like a very broad artistic field. So I've been working both with film, dance, and visual art. And also my background is that I've done a lot of studies. Like actually, I had an education, like pedagogical education from Reggio Emilia in Italy, so on
Okay.
plays. But that is like 20 years ago. And I had like an aesthetic education there, so I started working there, and I also had some practice there for like 6 months in different preschools. So my connection to Reggio is quite strong. I usually say that is one of my like fingers or one of my pockets.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I really think that they are making like working very in a very beautiful way with young children, and
Yeah.
also how they all the time have these aesthetic dimensions present in their work. And yeah, so I have like an artistic background, but I also have been working with children for 25 years, and also have, yeah, and I think also above all with like the very young children, I'm always very interested in what they create, like what is their contribution, what are the new dimensions that they give us. I
Mhm.
mean, the new generations, how do they challenge us? Like what perspectives can they invent? And I think it's very important, and it's very important to, I mean, when from the phrases that you read now in the beginning, I didn't remember them. I mean, I was like, yeah, um, I think if you think about these things in relation to violence and masculinity and what is going on in the world, it becomes very, very, very important, I think, to ask ourselves, how can we approach younger generations, young children, with this very great curiosity
Mhm.
on how can you, I mean, if I meet a very young child, how can you explore what we are giving to you? Not only like so I think that's like really a very strong curiosity in me that I really want to explore. How do you respond to this? And I think it's not always very easy, because I
Mhm.
think there is like a very broad misunderstanding that it's easy to work with small children, with young children. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a children's play. You know, if you want to explain something easy, you say it's a game, it's a
Uh-huh.
children's play. But actually, it's very difficult to work with young children. It's very difficult to create things with like work with quality, and is very, very demanding. And I think that is an aspect that we have to consider. And thinking about these aspects of violence, how do you say, how is it connected to expression, like how we express ourselves? And the funny thing was, when I started this work, I can tell you something about this, because this particular interest for war play was because when I have two sons on my own, and Dario and Theo, and when they were born and they were very young, I was so surprised that they were starting to play war in such an early age.
Uh-huh.
They were like 2 or 3 when they started pointing at, like, I want this gun, I want this sword, or,
Uh-huh.
And as a mother, I was like really concerned, like, how can I approach this? And I really had so many questions around this, also because I was a little bit surprised. I thought that they would maybe not act like that, because
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I had some expectation that they would just, avoid those things. But no, they were like everyone else. So yeah. So then I started to explore these like aspects of like being a mother and being a teacher and being a young boy, and I started to explore this in like schools and among friends. So it started like in my own life, you could say,
Uh-huh.
connected to me personally, this interest. And I started filming children because I thought, as I said in the beginning, I thought that I know that for me, working with children for a long time, I haven't seen very like destructive ways of approaching life. So I was surprised that so many adults were so extremely negative about war play. So I was a bit surprised about that. I was negative myself in the beginning, but then when I met so much negativity amongst teachers and parents, I started questioning that.
Uh-huh.
So I sort of started instead thinking I need to learn from the children what they do.
Yeah.
So I needed to observe them and learn from them actually. So that was like how my interest started.
Uh-huh.
And that was where I found that movement and expressive movement is very present.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was so eye-opening. And I am one who has evolved too in my ideas about weapon play or war play. Like I was assuming that it was um something that should be stopped. And then even when I got a little bit more comfortable, I knew that people looking in from the outside would judge us for allowing it. And so I spent a lot of time trying to stop it. And Mike's work has helped me change my mind and move away from it. And I'm going to let you talk in a minute, Mike. But one of the
I'm
things that
waiting to be told I have permission.
one of the things that I highlighted in the article and then circled was when you're talking about how you were filming them playing war so that you could learn more about it. You said the skillfulness and strength of the children's movements were the most striking of my observations. Another early observation was that the children were so careful not to hit each other while performing complex and dynamic movements. And I was like, yes. I
Right.
never articulated it myself or thought about it that specifically, but that is amazing that and
Hmm.
true. So I just that was like, oh yes, I am going to love this article. I am going
Right.
to learn from this. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
one thing
wonderful.
I noticed, well, one thing that really struck me about the article, or we talked maybe last summer, I can't remember when we
Mm.
first talked, Ebba, but um, that I also come from an arts background and I had never equated
Not
it.
an arts background over here
And
in
what I
Heather's
remember
corner.
is because I worked with a choreographer, Yoshiko Chuma, so postmodern choreographer, definitely influenced by like contact improv and all these things. But I remember I wasn't really into sports. And then I went to a hockey game with my dad after being kind of immersed in dance for a while, especially downtown New York dance scene of the 80s. And suddenly I watched and it's like, oh, it's dance, and I
Yeah.
started watching the game, especially being up high, and I could watch all these bodies moving so fast. The difference, of course, they're trying to hit each other,
Mhm.
but but it suddenly changed like how I viewed that. And I hadn't really thought about when I then started teaching because I kind of fell into it. I actually had an internship at an art museum, and when it ended, I didn't. My um, uh, roommates worked at this childcare center, so that's why I started doing it. And a lot of it was around like I was really interested in movement and I think my natural instinct was when they were doing something that I would just kind of mimic their movements.
Yeah.
And then so I kind of came that way with rough and tumble play, which
Uh-huh.
rough and tumble play does involve contact, but at the same time, very specific contact. You don't hit someone with your elbow. You like so also it's very controlled movement and controlled in a way that is a little more like contact improv in that you don't know what the other person's doing and you have to respond in the moment to it. And it's like it's such a complex
Yeah.
thing. And I hadn't thought of it, the dance connection to it until talking with you. I've been like, oh, right. I kind of same thing. I wasn't as involved. I just simply worked with this one choreographer. And like my role as a dancer was to just do pedestrian movements. Like I'm sitting there reading a newspaper, at the bus stop while other more crane dancers are doing more, fluid movements and things. And my thing was walking, but a lot of it was learning to walk on stage the way
Yeah.
you would walk in real life and things like that. But I was just kind of and then do it at 5 times the speed or whatever, like do the same movement, same facial expression, but sped up and things like that. But still, I was so attuned to movement, and I hadn't realized how much probably my work is also influenced by that too.
Yeah, yeah. And it is so interesting when I heard Heather's reflection as well, because this is what I met. Actually, I made a film about this that is called The Force. And it was in like 2016 or something. And the first time I showed it to an audience, I was so nervous because I thought everyone is going to think I'm crazy now. But I just thought this is what I saw. So I had to show people this because we need to discuss this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, turning back to how we see boys, how we approach boys, because it's mostly boys that play this kind of play. It's very important, I think, just to start to discussing how we approach this kind of expression, because we all humans, we need to express ourselves. We need to explore these strong expressions and dimensions of being a human. So yeah, and the movement, I think, okay, everything is. I think maybe the dimension here that I want is like the aesthetic dimension of this movement. That was like surprising also to me, that it's so poetic and sometimes not very, that is both dynamic, very poetic, and sometimes very slow. They often put like explore, for example, different poses of meditation, like when you sit.
Uh-huh,
No, how
uh-huh.
is it you do this with your legs crossed?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So there are so many things that becomes visible for you when you like change this kaleidoscope of your observation. It's like I see it like you just twist the kaleidoscope another,
Mhm.
not very far, but just a little bit to another side, so the
Yeah.
pattern changes. And when I formalized this kind of observations more and came into the university, like the academic environment, and I tried to explore these things and deepen them even more. I had a supervisor also that was a dancer and choreographer. Uh, and she's a specialist on dance interpretation. And when I showed her my first clips, because I have a lot of like filmed material, of course, she said, yeah, this is exactly what we do when we
Oh, wow.
this is exactly what we
Uh-huh.
do. I would say it's no difference.
Yeah. So
So
you've I guess I'm just gonna look at this and see you said let's see, after when you were watching your filmed sequences, an intense way of experiencing the world through an embodied musicality is what you noticed, and you called it a kinesthetic musicality. So
mhm.
do you want to talk about that phrase, that label a little bit?
Yeah. Um, when you're like trying to formulate um, all the observations and try to like form them in some shape, like in categories and in head categories. I was searching very for all this time. How can I describe this? What I'm
Yeah.
seeing here? It's a very high like sensibility, of course, that is very like embodied, like very physical, and but I think also from what I thought, it was not enough of like describing a very high sensitivity, because it's also something very artistic, very poetic in it.
Uh,
So I see very clearly that it's also like an aesthetic attention from the
uh-huh.
children. And the musicality, I just think that music is so immediate to all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that like each movement from the very young child is very full of this, like how you um, how you explore things with your hands. Like it's not the same thing if you're holding a plate or if you're holding a brush or if you are like all the time responding
Uh-huh.
to. everything that you meet with this very high, like embodied sensitiveness.
Uh-huh.
So, so I think it's like uh, sometimes it's not so easy to see because they are very fast.
Yeah.
Uh, we often talk about slowness, like being slow and giving time to children, and I think that's very important. But also how we can speed up maybe sometimes, like how can we become greater observers?
Yeah.
So that's why I think the film medium is so good, because if we film children, we can always go back and see and look in slow motion what they are
Yeah.
actually exploring and how they do it.
Yeah. I was
Um,
thinking I was thinking about that idea that um filming it allows us to allows us to sort of relax and be able to see it differently. I think in the moment we're, especially if we're new to allowing this kind of play or still kind of nervous about it, I think in the moment we're worried about who else is seeing this, who's watching, what are the other children doing? I better stay close in case it gets out of control. And so while I really love the idea of thinking about um love and I'll say accept the idea because I think I agree that when we start to notice it in this way it becomes poetic rather than violent. I think that for some being able to step out of the action would be necessary to be able to really relax enough to see that
Yeah, I
it's
imagine some teachers would
complex
be
and
worried, is
poetic.
someone going to get hurt? And
Yeah,
in a
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
film,
yeah.
you already know the outcome.
Right, yes, yeah.
Mm,
What I appreciate about the term musicality too is that music um like strikes you in more than one way, right? It's very emotional. You feel it internally, and there's a cognitive or the thinking part of that.
Mhm.
And you can get really analytical about music, but if it doesn't actually strike the emotion, and I think gunplay does just that, right? That whatever chord it's striking is, just very immediate for those children.
yes.
And I guess maybe for the adults who are worried,
Yeah.
it's also striking them in an emotional way.
Yes.
And but then there is, you can then approach it, in that analytic way as well. And that's maybe a good practice for the adults who are worried. It's like, oh, right now, let's just analyze this. But what are they doing?
Yes.
I used to do that around what are the rules, like in terms of what limitations do the children put on themselves. I didn't think of it from a choreographer lens, I guess. I thought of it more as like a game, like if you're watching people play Dungeons and Dragons or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and there's these rules and you don't know them, and so you're watching and making sense. But I think the idea of just the so rules isn't the right word. Now I forgot what you refer to it in the article, but that idea of the that choreographer lens allows for like what are the movement, what's the vocabulary or whatever,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's what you're looking for. It's not rules, it's vocabulary. And that actually then really you get to appreciate the construction that's happening. It's not
Mhm.
destructive, it's constructive.
Exactly, exactly. And that was
Yeah.
also what I wrote. And I wanted to say this that when I first got into the academy with this project, one of the first books that I found was Mike's book about rough and tumble play. And I was just so, I really loved it so much. And I was like so amazed that uh, when you find certain like books, you feel very connected because
Mhm.
it's like, oh yes, but I still think you are like many steps ahead of me because you have learned, I mean, you have really learned how to use these thoughts like in the school context, like how to prepare spaces for like more physically engaged
Mhm.
play and also like thinking about um, also thinking about these like aspects of how do we raise boys and
Yeah.
how do we allow people to touch like touch
Mhm.
each other. So all
Right.
these things I think comes down to um, showing like more humility and more love
Mhm.
towards
Yeah.
every child, and also more warmth, I think,
Hmm.
because
Yep.
uh, it's very like common that boys, above all in the whole world, are like approached with harsher like
Mhm.
voices.
Yeah.
And I think in a like very, maybe a little like strange way, that all this condemning of wordplay might also be a way of that becomes very harsh in the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
You're
yeah,
never
yeah.
allowed to express what the rest of the society tells you to explore. I mean, this
Right.
is how you are like a man. You have the rifle and you are Putin and you do this and you do this, and then
Yeah.
you try to explore these dimensions, and then the teacher gets angry.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah, it's
think,
that
of
idea of
course,
not being seen or accepted is the actual um that's the concern for
Right.
me.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
embracing the child as they present themselves
Yeah.
and seeing this as
yeah,
constructive. It is, I think, the harsh language or the I feel bad about a thing that I enjoy doing, or there's this
Mhm.
exactly.
internal thing and
A lot of
people,
shame and
yeah,
yes.
shame
Yes.
and things like that. And then statistically speaking, this is going way off the rails in some ways, but I know people have already gone there. Serial shooters, people who've no, mass shooters, sorry, I've got my
Yeah.
terminology right.
Yeah.
The common threads are a feeling of disconnection and I guess Stuart Brown would say for some different study, but there's that lack of play in
Play
that, like not
deprivation.
playing, yeah, play
Yeah.
deprivation. In terms of the anti-violence project, they specifically cite like that lack of connection to
Hmm.
others.
Yes, the lack of inclusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, right, so you have written about inclusion. So I think in a very like counterproductive way, we try to educate our boys, our sons, to become less violent, but what lands in them, like what comes to them, is that they are not wanted. I mean, in
Hmm.
this sense, in this relation to wordplay. And of course, like wordplay, violence, these expressions, they scare us, of course. I
Right.
mean, we are all humans, and I think it's very like natural to be like scandalized and worried and all these things,
Mhm.
both as a parent and as a teacher. I think it's very like normal, and that we are all afraid of like educating violent
Hmm.
young
Yeah.
men.
Yep.
But I also think that it's so, that's why I think it's so important from the first phrase that you read, in relation to that, Heather, that it's also very important that we ask ourselves, how can we find more ways
Hmm.
of seeing, interpreting, approaching, preparing like pedagogical like situations, like that we need to like always find more nuances, and also to see the new aspects that children bring to us, that they
Right.
bring to our common life. Because if we get like more of like how do you say, if we become a little bit more sensitive to what they invent, I think it's also easier for them to create and find new paths and
Hmm.
to explore masculinity and to explore like more ways of like growing up as a boy, if we encounter them with like you said, Mike, with not our own destructive behaviors, but we
Right.
see what is
Yeah, yeah.
constructive,
Yeah.
what is constructive, and how can I
Hmm.
like
Do you think this is
contact.
similar to the way, oh, sorry,
No,
to
say.
the way, like in professions that are mostly male and women entering the profession? I have a friend who's a union carpenter, and just the way anything that's not like, it's like, yes, you can join us, but you have to act exactly like us,
Mm-hmm.
and that like not allowing for ways that she might socialize, the way that she might whatever, just whatever, like everything is kind of set up of like, no, it's only this way and you're not
Yeah.
welcome. And I think, um, feminist theory has done, wonderful work in talking about that. Like that's exclusion still,
Hmm.
even when you're saying, oh, you can come, you're welcome to be here,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
act like us.
Hmm.
Exactly.
And and it seems like that's what we're talking about with young children in reverse.
Hmm.
Um, just gender reversal there,
Mm.
but it seems similar to me in
Yeah.
that sense of, and then therefore, to me, the message is the masculinity is sort of being in opposition to something. Like it's about what you're in opposition to rather than being able to express yourself. I'm not saying that that's the only thing, but that's a concern of mine, that if we aren't allowing children to express themselves, the message is your ideas, your whatever, if you want to, your, because um I'm totally lost in what I'm saying now. Someone save
Yeah,
me.
but
I don't know.
the thing is
I
that
was looking ahead.
it's very like it's so interesting to talk about, but still it's like so complex because it touches upon masculinity, it touches
Hmm.
upon violence and arts and education and pedagogy. So there are really a lot of like different keys that
Hmm.
you can't like avoid. So you
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
really move around this topic like this. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think what I keep thinking of or kept thinking of as I was listening to you two, um, is sort of the importance of talking about benefits when we're talking about play. Like, here are all the ways that allowing this kind of play or supporting this kind of play would be helpful. But I think we also need to consciously and explicitly talk about the potential harm of, because where is it? You wrote, we might ask ourselves whether all this prohibition, zero tolerance, and disinterest might risk alienating young boys from our communities and our educational institutions. And I think you kind of touched on that, but weren't as explicit as as it's written here. And I think sometimes when I'm trying to advocate for play in general and I focus on the benefits, it's not enough to change someone's mind.
no, 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 no.
But if I can say, okay, well, here's the potential risk, or here's the way we may harm, and we've all said, we're going to do no harm, right? So
Mm.
then we have to talk about it differently, and sometimes that's more impactful for the person that I'm trying to persuade.
Yeah. And I think from my research, I have like this very, very like small focus actually, this very, very small perspective that I like dived into and deepened. So, and I just think that this is like a dimension of warplay that
Hmm.
I think we can be, that I think can be very useful for us to pay attention to. Because it's like really like seeing another spectra, I think, and other possibilities. So that's why also I think it's so important to, uh, if you all want to explore these dimensions together with us in Sweden, um, that it's also something that is so important for in early childhood. Because imagine like going to preschool, it's like the first institution you meet outside the family, and that they become so important that you are not encountered by like met by people that right away
Right.
say to you, from that you are 2 years old until you are six every day, that what you are
Yeah.
playing is
Your
wrong.
ideas are bad.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so I just think like, how can we meet these young, very young, like newly arrived persons
Hmm.
in the most like creative, constructive way we can and warm way we can.
Hmm.
And then I think, of course, it's a problem that we always have so little time in the preschool as teachers. We're always like, we have a lot of things to do. So I think it's not always you have that time to be that
Hmm.
calm and wise like that. But I think at least to, for example, what I wanted to say before also was that when I come back to the first time when I showed the film, I have been in like many conferences with my material, with my film. I also show these films because it's easier for me to show movement in that way. And I've always been met with like very great, how do you say, like great enthusiasm from educators.
Okay. Yeah.
And like you, they say that they recognize this. And yes, I have seen it, but I didn't like register. I didn't formulate it. So that was like a really nice experience. That has been a really nice experience, I must say. And they also, very many teachers, preschool teachers and teachers in school have said that we usually like end up in two. It's so interesting to hear what it's like in America. But anyway, we usually end up in two, how do you say, two different,
Camps.
sorry?
Camps.
We would probably say camps, like two
Yeah,
different
exactly.
ideas of things. Yeah.
So there are some that allow wordplay and some that absolutely don't allow it. And the problem is, as teachers, we can't discuss this because it's like either or. It's like we can't come any further. But when we start lifting these perspectives, that is like a third foot or a third way, we can start our discussions in other ways. We can start thinking about what can we do with these thoughts or with this, if we start to seeing also these perspectives, how can we explore them and what can we do? And even if it's only like two boys in 1 year that are exploring choreographically, how can we lift them and how can we see that? So
Yeah.
so it's I just hope that it can be a contribution to seeing more dimensions and to explore more dimensions in both as parents and teachers.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that because you offer in this piece 6 movement categories of wordplay, and I do think that's how we can bring some folks over to new ways of thinking is to give them new language and new
Yeah.
labels for things, new vocabulary. So you've got rhythm, orchestrating spaces, fictional characters as spaces for exploring the quality of movement, the movement canon of warplay, phrases, and aesthetic attention. So we probably can't go in depth into each of them, but I did want to bring those into the conversation and talk about that a little bit, that you've identified these specific ways that movement is being used and explored when children play in this way.
Mm. Yes, it's I think from the beginning I had like 48 categories
Oh,
or something.
wow.
Because also now when I see it, I think only six. When I see that I've written only six.
Yeah. Oh, did
So
I?
yes, but
I got
I
them all.
narrowed it down to
Uh-huh.
six because I think that's, if it's too big, it's also like it's hard to handle.
Right.
And yes, I think it's important to try to name things a little bit. And what is this kind of what is going on here? Like, how can I describe this? And this and is it something that is coming back, or is it something that happens only once, or So um, mm.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I think.
Mike, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just so one thing I wish I could remember who this was. It was long before I thought I would be writing about early childhood, but I saw someone speak at the NAEYC conference so decades ago now, but it was somebody who taught at a lab school, and the university also had a dance program. And they were doing a lot of superhero play, which at the time was also a big concern. I think now that superhero movies are out, people realize this is a fictional thing, and
Uh-huh.
but what he did, because he was feeling uncomfortable, was he asked dancers to come in, and they've like partnered, like each dancer partnered with, and they had like the kids kind of, they watched their superhero play. Film would have been better because they changed their performance in front of
Uh-huh.
people, but then they, the dancer would ask about, the movement and what the superpowers were and all that, and then created phrases around it. And then the dancers went back and using those phrases they learned from the kids, created a dance and then performed it for the
Oh.
kids.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
still think that it was like the first time I'd ever heard that idea of like, look at those small movements of the kids and these
Uh-huh.
repeated phrases. Because one thing I think about everywhere I've been with the way gunplay happens or warplay happens, it's different based on what the kids have experienced or
Hmm.
what their knowledge is or whatever it is. Because it's not like they actually go out and watch the things happening. So it's interesting to even think about how do they even know this.
Hmm.
But they learn the phrases then from each other. So in the particular childcare center, they're like, "Oh, this is the way we do the thing," and the gun sound is pew pew here, and somewhere
Yeah.
else it's like shoo or whatever. Yeah, or what like when Star Wars is bigger, it's I
Yes.
can't whatever that sound is. You know, like they actually have these different. This is the sound you make. This is the and the movements are all relatively the same in terms of whether
Mhm.
it's a thing that shoots. Like I rarely see kids hold it as if it's a rifle.
Hmm.
It's
Mhm.
always one-handed. And then sword play, still, it's usually one hand. You know,
Yeah.
their dominant hand is usually the one doing the phrases, but it's definitely there's phrases that actually get transmitted to the other child. And it's probably more in like your broader categories of
Hmm.
the how the phrase gets passed back and forth, but it does for sure. That's what I
Yeah.
love about the way you broke this down. It's like, oh, I completely see that. And even the fictional character thing, I remember talking to a parent who they did not, they didn't have TV, the internet, like they did not expose their child. Well, the internet wasn't a thing back then because this is a long time ago, but you know, they never watched movies. They were for religious purposes, they,
Uh,
you know, did not follow, but that child performed the character the same way as everyone else.
Hmm.
yeah.
And the parent was like, you know, like, who are the Ninja Turtles? What are you
Exactly.
talking about? You
Exactly.
know? And it
Exactly.
was like
So
they all knew. So even the
yeah.
child who had never seen the actual thing,
Yeah.
maybe someone had a lunchbox or something, or saw a picture, you know, when they're walking around, but
Yeah, they
that
learn
child
from
knew
each
how to
other.
move,
Yeah.
how to be the character. It wasn't just like he knew what it looked like.
Hmm.
And so it's just so interesting to me the way, because their phrases, that's what gets transmitted. It's like the movement itself, they learn from each other and
Yeah, they
adapt.
learn from each other in the play. So uh yeah, for example, also this great success of Fortnite. It has, you know, the computer game. It also
Yeah.
has like very many movements. So I think
Uh-huh.
that's one of the reasons why it spread so fast. And for the moment, I am exploring, like together with a preschool teacher, how we could like try these ideas in a preschool everyday life, like how we can work more like directly with like dance methods connected to this. But we are like taking it very like carefully, like one step at a time, because we
Hmm.
don't want to rush anything or I don't want to like simplify too much either,
Mhm.
but like trying to do just small things like do you know any, you know, we worked with 4-year-old boys the other day and just ask them, do you know any superheroes? Oh yeah, I know Spider-Man. And then they start, you know,
Yes.
the last time I had prepared so many things, and but they actually, the moment we started talking about superheroes, they were only like dancing. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
then we could just like try with different music, different energies, and the whole thing was and as always, they didn't have a place for dance. So we dance in the kitchen or something like that,
Mhm.
like where they had food in a very small space. I think this is a I don't know in the US how it is, but usually they are like no, there is like no space for movement in the preschool.
Yes.
It's like very hard to
Yeah,
find it.
and I would say what in the 90s for sure in the US it was very much like design your space so that kids won't be able to do those types of things because that's
Yeah,
disruptive.
yes,
You know, it's
exactly.
very much a part of what and like the licensing, the regulations tell you you need like a pretend play space. So there's, you know, probably a kitchen set. You need a place for blocks. You need a place for this and that. And
Exactly.
I don't think there's a single place in the United States that tells you you have to have a space for um
Kinesthetic
bigger
musicality.
movements. Yeah, yeah. Except you like outdoors. There's a
Yeah.
playground, and yeah, like
Yes.
it's that idea that you go out and do that, and then there's
Mm.
that attitude that's just burning off the energy, so
Uh-huh.
then they can come in and not do those movements.
Yeah.
But there's never a time of like, yeah, this is actually a great thing, and and
Yeah.
like it's totally contrary to anything we know about how
Yeah.
movement affects or is integral to cognitive development, how it's integral to social
Exactly.
development. And so it's yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that that's not considered a space
Yeah.
or a thing,
An interest area
an
a little
interest
Yeah, an
area. Yeah,
aspect
yeah.
of
Yeah.
And if anything, it's like,
how you arrange the
yeah,
environment.
yeah,
I was so glad that you brought that up actually in your book.
Mm.
The physical space, because having a physical space for where the body can move is not only like physical, it's also mental. Like
yeah.
physical space is also always mental. Like
Mm-hmm.
you give room for this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And what I also wanted to say in relation to that with the superheroes and the choreographer, we are also in this project that research project that I'm doing now. I am working with older children and computer games,
Oh,
and
okay.
also like going to because computer games was something that I avoided actually in this
Mm-hmm.
first project because I wanted to look only at the physical wordplay when children are very young, and there are influences from computers, of course,
Sure.
but now I'm going to study children that are like 9 to 15, how they relate physically also to computer games, and we're also going to explore like to deepen these aspects of the choreographic
Mm-hmm.
dimensions together with the dancer as well. So we are in different ways trying to like quite carefully work with these ideas
Uh-huh. Yeah.
together with children to explore them more and to understand more
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah, the
Um,
video game thing I've avoided because I don't really play video
yeah.
games, and it's just like, oh, there's a lot I'd have to learn. And
Yeah.
It's
but I
so
am very
difficult.
interested in reading someone else's work
Yeah.
Yes, you
or watching or whatever,
it's it's fascinating actually, but it's so much to learn. I
Yeah.
am I am so new to this
Mm-hmm.
field, so it's so much to understand here. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
So
go
oh
ahead. Yeah.
well, I was
I
just
was
gonna
about to go
say,
down a different rabbit hole. So
yeah, it's
yeah.
getting close to time where we
Yeah, it
need
is.
to
Yep.
wrap it. So uh there's another quote because we've used the word violence a few times in the conversation, and I know that's the main concern, right? Is we're afraid that we're allowing children to be violent or that they're learning that violence is okay if we allow this kind of play. But you wrote that you believe that this kinesthetic musicality and the things you were noticing in this kind of play actually might enable a greater sensitivity towards their friends and objects and towards the space in which they play. And I think that's something I want to make sure we include in this conversation too, is this idea that you think it's not promoting violence, it might actually have this kind of socializing benefit and perspective taking or even just maybe empathy. Like I guess I just wanted to hear you talk a little bit more about that piece of it.
yeah, yes. Um, I think also Mike wrote about that, like
Yeah.
that we have to, that children have to explore different kinds of like touch and different kinds of
Yeah.
dynamics, and
Yeah. Mike, you can
we
talk
shouldn't
too,
be
I guess.
so afraid of that. I mean, but I really think that I understand that we are all also worried and we want the
Hmm.
best for all children, and that it can be like worrying or scaring like scare us sometimes, um, but maybe like that is so important to learn more about playful aggressivity, like
Hmm.
uh, what is the difference here? And I think we tend to like simplify very much and think of violence as like one thing. But I think violent play, like playful aggressivity, is like so very different from a real conflict or real aggression.
Yeah.
I
So
think
if
in
we,
the article, the way you talk about dancers who are influenced by martial arts
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
was a really good way to think of that. Of the martial arts as because a lot of people use martial arts now as a way to help focus yourself, exercise, and it's not thought of as an aggressive thing that you're doing so that you can then hurt other people. It might be in case you get attacked, you'll be able to defend yourself, but it's not seen as aggression. And I
Hmm.
think that's a really good way for some people maybe to start thinking about this type of play is I was even trying to toy with does martial play like work as
Martial
a
play.
too awkward.
Yeah,
But it's just
yes.
that idea that like we call it martial arts and not war arts, even though that's the same meaning. At
Hmm.
least in English, that would be the same meaning. And but yet it's a thing because to me, if you think of it as martial arts, you are attuning to your the other person you're playing with. You're matching movements, your phrases, your movement phrases, whatever they do, you have a way to do the other thing, and that's what's happening in this type of play. And
Yeah,
that attunement to another person is such a positive thing. And
exactly.
as kids get older, sports allow these limitations where, the whole idea is you go all out and you do whatever you can to win
Hmm.
in those cases. But it's that idea that at the end, you know,
Yeah.
like you're still whatever friends might be too strong a term for some. I didn't really play sports very much, so I feel I'm out of my league here. But I know like people who play sports, like you're supposed to be competitive, and people actually really respect each other because the other person was so competitive. It's not, well, you were trying to, whatever, dominate me in this, in tennis. It's like, whoa, you really, that was, hardest I've ever had to play, whatever. And it becomes a respect thing. And I think this type of play is somewhat like getting at that same idea that it actually is really tuning you into the other person. And it would be boring if the person just, oh, every time you pointed your finger, I fall down and say, oh, you
Yeah.
got me. It's like you want
Yeah,
this sort of give and
there
take.
is like one if I try to explain it also like this, that specifically I observed war play, and the more general um, idea that came out was the idea of kinesthetic musicality that actually was born from observing war play.
Uh-huh.
So you can see that like in those two terms. And that kinesthetic musicality is more about like exploring the world and
Yeah.
life through the body, like through an embodied musicality. And you can see that a lot in war play. So these things are
Right.
like really also like new to me, and they like I have so many questions also, and I just feel that, and I can see that we need to explore these connections more.
Hmm.
And as you said, I mean, I think one of the headlines, like the smaller headlines in the article, is force taking form.
Mhm.
uh, in relation to your question, Heather, and that is a concept or description that comes from Erin Manning, the dancer, a choreographer. She's in Canada. And she describes this like very philosophically, how different forces and different like processes in the world um, have like different moments and different forms, and then they take shape like this. And I think that this is one very like nice thing to describe, like it's a nice way of describing uh, what very young children often explore when they play war. That they are, how can I respond to this movement? One very common movement is, for example, when you do the force. This is like the hand that you
Yeah.
stretch Do they do that in USA too?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so how can I respond to that force that you are sending me now? So
Uh-huh.
they're all the time like it's like dialogues and also like group communications, also that empowering these groups actually, these play
Uh-huh.
groups. So how does the force that you send me, how does that shape my movement? How
Mhm.
does my movement take form? So it's like a very like highly sensitive skill that they explore actually. So I think we should be a little bit like more carefully before we stop that exploration, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike, did you have anything?
Well, no, I was like thinking, oh, that's a great way to end.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I've got, I guess it's lawn mowing day outside. They were so close to my house that it was like shaking my desk, so I had to mute for a while. So and get myself back into the conversation now. But this is so interesting. I know I'm gonna just be thinking about this for a while now. And uh I'm sure it's going to come up in my classes also as I start teaching this fall, because I'm always trying to find new ways to help the students kind of move towards it's okay, to let these kinds of play happen. And not only is it just okay, it's actually like beneficial, and there's really great things that can come from it. Um, so thank you again, for doing the work, and for putting it out there for Mike to find, or for you to find Mike, however it happened. I really appreciate the work both of you are doing in this, around this
Yeah, and
area.
I'm glad we, met, and I know it's really hard for us to actually connect much because of the
Yeah,
time difference in
yeah,
our
Yes, yes. You're
life
fully different.
schedules, but
yeah,
yeah, but I'm always fascinated by like your perspective on things and um yeah, like yeah, like I can go 1,000 different
yeah,
ways with this, but
yeah.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
we'll have
and the
another
same to you.
conversation.
yeah,
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking to you,
Yeah,
really. And
yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you
hope we can
both again.
explore these things together in
Yeah,
some way. Mm.
yeah. All right. Well, and thanks everyone for listening to another episode of That Early Childhood Nerd. We'll see you again next week.